Shalom Aleichem, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to those joining us live, to those who are joining us on Chabad.org, to those who will be watching this at a later time, at a later date. Welcome and Mazel Tov as we conclude Sefer Zmanim, and today begin Hilchos Ishus, book number 4 of the Rambam. As we do each time, we celebrate the conclusion of a Sefer by having a guest who will add some excitement, some enthusiasm, some zest to our learning. Though these are quote-unquote micro Siyumim after each Sefer, the fact that we do mark these occasions gives us the accomplishment of knowing that Baruch Hashem, God has given us the ability and the good strength and health to be able to come to this occasion. And God should give us the ability to move forward, to be able to study the book of Nashim with greater enthusiasm, with greater energy, and we are honored to have with us Rabbi Shuchat, Rabbi Sholom Ber Shuchat, who is a returning guest on the Siyum program. We haven't had that many returning guests, so this is obviously a sign that it was very much enjoyed last time. And the last time, I believe we were more in the field of Rabbi Shuchat's more well-known expertise, which is in the laws of Mammonis, in Chesed Mishpat, in judicial law, in financial discussions. But here we are, and Rabbi Shuchat is now going to take us a little bit through the book of Zmanim. Welcome, Rabbi Shuchat. You should please, can we ask the moderator to please unmute? Oh, Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom.
Thank you very much for taking the time for joining us. And I understand that you actually in the Kollel recently, that you direct, in addition to being a well-known halachic authority in specifically joining Bezdin's courts of laws in Chesed Mishpat, in judicial and financial matters. You also oversee a premier kollel in Crown Heights, and you've recently finished studying many of the issues that we'll be talking about today. So I just want to jump right in to the beginning of the book. And the beginning of the book begins in the laws of Shabbos. So you are not the traditional pulpit rabbi that gets asked the questions of my cholent is here and my spoon fell here. You deal with larger issues, if there is such a thing, if we can talk about a larger issue. But please, if I had to ask you, give us
all issues. You can't say large or small.
All issues are equal. Thank you, Rabbi. But if I had to ask you for how about not large or small, but something that pops in your mind, an interesting story, question, something that comes to your mind out of the box. You might have recently been dealing with the laws of Shabbos, and we'll actually go through the book quickly together. So let's start with the beginning.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about Hilchos Shabbos, actually we'll start with the Gemara says that when you start learning Torah, teach, you're supposed to start with something which is on the lighter side, which will make people laugh. They get into the mode of learning. So we'll start with a story which is an interesting halachic question, but I'm sure most people here will enjoy the answer. I got a call once from a rabbi of a big congregation that he speaks every Shabbos after Kriyas Torah, and there's air conditioners in the summer, and usually his voice is strong enough to be able to overcome the noise of the air conditioners. But his voice went south at some point, and his voice was that Shabbos he had a hard time speaking, and some people came to him, they couldn't hear him in shul. So he asked me, is it allowed to on Shabbos to ask a guy to turn off the air conditioner before he starts speaking and turn it back on when he's done speaking, so that way nobody's going to get too hot in shul.
Well, so first of all, that limits the amount he can speak, because if he speaks for too long, it'll get hot.
I guess so. Well, I guess he has a standard amount of time. So I turned to him and I asked him a very simple question. Do you have goyim that come to your shul? And his answer was yes. So I told him, okay, so we have a way out of this problem. And I'm going to just explain why. And I'm sure everybody who learned over here knows this is halacha. You're not allowed to ask a guy to do something which you yourself are not allowed to do on Shabbos. If you ask a guy to do something for you on Shabbos, or even if you hinted to him that in an indirect hint, you're also not allowed to do it. And in certain scenarios, you may not have any hanoah from it on Shabbos. Definitely, sometimes even after Shabbos. However, there's an interesting three short things from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Shabbos, which would give you the answer to this. It says one in Shin Zayin. It says you're not allowed to tell a guy to do a malacha for himself, but you could tell a guy do a malacha for yourself, for the guy, or for another guy, even if the Jew is going to end up having enjoyment from it. For example, the example Alter Rebbe gives is tells a guy, go, your house is on fire, go extinguish the flames. He's going to get hanoi from it. However, that only works because it's in the guy's house. But you can't tell a guy do something with my chafetzim, with my objects on Shabbos, even if because then it looks like you're telling, like the guy is becoming your shliach to do it, even if the only reason you're telling him to do it is for his own benefit, right? That's on Shabbos. There is an interesting Kuntra Sachem from Alter Rebbe in Siman Reish Mem Hey, where he tells you that even when you tell a guy to do something for himself in something which belongs to you, that only applies when it's done, when you tell the guy on Shabbos. But if you tell the guy before Shabbos and the guy is not your employee, you tell the guy before Shabbos, you could use my tools and do something for the benefit of another guy, then it's mutter. So I told the shliach, I know that when you have goyim in shul, probably they're the guys that are listening the best to your speeches. The Jews are probably out during Kiddush Club. So if you have the goyim there, they're the ones listening to your speeches. Tell one guy to turn off the air conditioner so the other guy could hear you well, and then you're good to go. As long as you tell it to them before Shabbos, just don't tell them on Shabbos to do this malacha. I think we're done with the first topic. I don't see anybody. Everybody's on mute, so I don't hear if anybody took it the right way or the wrong way. So that's, I don't know if it's good or it's bad.
Thank you. Okay, let's move along. So we start out. The Rambam begins telling us, the law tells us about the goy. This is an issue, and I know that you've actually looked into this. I personally am not a big coffee drinker, but there is now within the world, one has to have a coffee that has 5 adjectives when you order from Starbucks, or else it doesn't cut. That doesn't meet the cut. On Shabbos, coffee. I know there's something called French press. Maybe we'll even put up a picture on the screen if we can get. Can one create French press coffee on Shabbos? If you could just give us a brief description, maybe I'll even put it up and share if I have permission to share if the host can give us permission here. But go ahead.
The host has to let you share. Otherwise,
okay, go ahead. You start. You give us 120 seconds on French press coffee.
Okay, so there's traditionally Jews drank tasteless choice coffee, instant coffee on Shabbos with cliche, and it doesn't taste that good for people who appreciate coffee. I'm not one of those people. I can handle all those instant coffee. But there are people who want to have brewed coffee on Shabbos. And they pour the hot water into the coffee. Then there's a way of doing it that you don't just brew it into the filter. There's a container where the grounds of coffee are mixed with the water. And on the top part of it has like some kind of strainer. And when after the coffee sits enough time with the hot water, you slowly push the strainer down. There you go. You push the strainer down. This, what you see on the bottom, that's the strainer. Usually it's all the way on the top. And then the whole thing is filled with grinds and with water. It's mixed together. Then when you're ready to drink coffee, you push that strainer all the way down to the bottom, slowly. And then the coffee is on top, and all the grinds are on the bottom. So I'm not going to go into the discussion about the questions of coffee, if it's considered if it's a kalia bishul, if it's considered a spice, if it's a makebe patish. That's all not. I'm not getting into that now. I want to focus specifically on what's the French press element, because the other things are relevant even if no French press. The first problem you have is biter. You have 2 main problems over here. Well, one main problem is biter. The one I want to talk about, biter. Everybody knows that the issue of biter. We learned it in the Rambam. It's not a big chiddush that everybody knows. You're not allowed to separate something bad from something good. You're not allowed to take something bad out of something good. You're not allowed to use a specific vessel which is made, a keli which is made to do biter, and you're not allowed to do it for later. But if you have all 3 conditions in reverse, that you do the biter with your hand, that you only biter what you want to use now, and that you biter the good from the bad, then it's permitted. right? Those are the three ways to do boider, that boider is permitted. Now there is a halacha regarding wine which has some kinds of sediment in it, that being that the wine is drinkable even with the sediment in it, then even though some people are picky and not going to drink it with it, it's still not considered boider. So I'm not going to go now into the discussion of that there are people from my heritage that they never use a filter for coffee, and they just put the Turkish coffee right into the hot water, let it settle on the bottom, and then drink it, and you get a few pieces. It's not the end of the world. That's how we drink coffee. But the Americans are mefunakim, and they need to have the filter, so they don't get chas v'shalom, don't get a single piece into it. So the question is, how are we going to use? Are we allowed to use this?
We got 60 seconds to give us the answer, Rabbi.
This machinery. So the answer is very simple. There's a Sefer Shulchan which says that, whoever knows, there's these old tea kettles which had used to put the tea leaves with the hot water, and at the edge of the kettle there was like a little filter kind of thing. And he says it's not considered a problem because you're not interested in boider. All you're interested in doing is to pour the tea out, and the only thing that happens is that these leaves are getting stuck in the strainer. So if you're pouring it out, you're not doing anything. Now over here, the problem is you're pushing it down with your hands. The question of you're pushing it down with your hand is that, first of all, it's not a kli for boider. It's a kli for making coffee. So you don't have that problem. Second of all, you're not doing it for later because you want to drink the coffee when it's hot. The only problem is when you're pushing it down, what are you doing? Are you separating bad from good or good from bad? It's the last question we have. So essentially what you're doing is you can look at it from both ways. I say when you're pushing the thing down, you're not pushing the grinds down, you're pushing the coffee up, because that's the only thing you care about. You don't care if the grinds would fall to the bottom, you're fine. So that's why once you push it down, as long as you leave some of the liquid mixed with the grains, you can pour it out. That's my view on the matter. Some people do disagree with me, so do not paskin based on what I told you. Ask your local Orthodox rabbi or you will burn. Thanks.
Okay, let's move along. We have two more questions over here. Okay, another thing that came in. We have, the summer, we're moving along to the laws of Erevin, walking. What?
We just jumped like a half a book. Hilchos Shabbos to Erevin. Erevin is all the way to 20-something chapters now.
So we're not going through every chapter, Rabbi.
Okay, just making sure.
Taking walks on Shabbos. Many people are out in the country or out in different places. Give us some general guidelines. How many steps? When I talk about a meal, it's a kilometer. How do I figure that? And really, we want to do this in 2-3 minutes each question.
Okay, so in short, there's a concept of Erev Tchumen. That person is not allowed to leave on Shabbos. You're not allowed to walk more than 2,000 mil, which is this one, just about 1 kilometer.
2,000 mil. 2,000
mil on Shabbos. And you could do an Erev Tchumen, which means you put something, some food in the middle of the way. After 2,000, you got another 2,000 to go. When you measure a city to determine, when you're in the city limits, you're fine. Once you start, you go and you measure the houses that are close to each other, and then you make like on the map, you make like a path around the houses. Then you put a square, you square it all out, and this is what's called the city. Then you have 2,000 amas in each direction. If you want to do an Erev Tchumen, you do 2,000 and another 2,000. So you have 4,000 in one direction. When you're in a place like the upstate New York, I don't know how many people here from upstate visited there, but you have bungalow colonies. Each bungalow colony, you have much more than the shiur between one bungalow colony and another bungalow colony. You can't square it out. There's a lot of trees and bears in between. So you have to just figure out how it's done. So let's say you make the square. Now, if I'm in a place, a big bungalow colony, and there's right next to it another bungalow colony, and there's the two, so you can make a big square. So I could do technically, and then the next bungalow colony is less than 4,000 away from bungalow colony A. So I make my square, I put something in the middle, and I could walk from bungalow colony A to bungalow colony B. But if I'm in bungalow colony B and I make the square, I'm not going to be able to reach bungalow colony A because it all depends how you make the square. Once you make the circle, you make a square around it. And now, so it could be that when you're in bungalow colony A, you can go to B. But if you're in B, you can't go to A. Even if you make a Erev, you can be more of a distance between even though it looks on the map, you would say the distance from New York to Philadelphia is the same as from Philadelphia to New York. But now when it comes to Erev Tchumen, the distance from one place to another is dependent on how you make the square. It could be one way will be permitted, the other way will not be.
Are there well-known, is there like a map of it? Are you familiar with any, like in bridges in New York? Which bridges yes, which there's no, where you can walk? Have you ever seen a map of Jewish communities where you can walk in the summer?
There is a place in Muncie, you pay them a few dollars, they come, they measure, they give you a map. They go upstate every year, the different bungalow colonies, different cities they have for Monticello, for every place they have a map which has the bungalow colonies and the camps, and they have around it a yellow circle and a red circle, so you could do which direction you want to go at, and then what's you're prohibited to go past it.
Okay, there's a business venture to be made over here with someone opening a website.
It's already done in Muncie. In upstate New York, it's already taken care of. Somebody already thought of it.
Okay, moving along. We'll do one question on Yom Tov and one question at the end over here. Someone came. These are some questions that came in. A left-handed person, myself. What hand would I take the lulav and esrog?
Okay, so we'll discuss something a little bit similar to that, not exactly that, and that connects us from Sefer Zmanim to Sefer Nashim. So it's really, should have did this question last, but it's fine if you could have done. But there's stories like this. There's a discussion by the Tzemach Tzedek regarding putting on tefillin. A lefty putting on tefillin, or somebody who has somebody who was born a righty, but his right hand got cut, and now he's using his left hand. He only has the upper part, the upper arm. His left hand is now the one that he uses mostly. The discussion about putting on tefillin is about 3 tshuvas of the Tzemach Tzedek. The same tshuvas also mention that bring the idea of lulav in between it, interestingly, and it also discusses chalitza. So you got yourself covered for 3 books of Rambam in one tshuva of the book that we were before, the book that we're now, and the book that we're starting. So when it comes to that, he discusses this whole idea about tefillin, and one of the things that he brings is the Alter Rebbe, interestingly, in Shulchan Aruch, when it comes to Netilas Lulav, says that somebody in Taf Reish Nun Aleph, that this person who was right-handed was born a righty, but then by need became a lefty because his right hand got destroyed. So he holds the lulav and esrog. He has to hold it with his arm, whatever is left of it, of the right, and not use his left hand. Why? Because he's not considered a lefty just because the right hand doesn't exist anymore. He becomes a lefty if he's born a lefty. And used based on that, he also paskins regarding tefillin. And it's the Divrei Nehemiah, who was the Talmud of the Alter Rebbe, also explains this idea that we go based on strength. Being that this person who lost his arm is still stronger in the right hand, he's still a righty by strength. So when he's going to put on the tefillin, when he's going to do lulav, he's going to use his left hand. He can't use his left hand. He's going to use whatever is left of his right hand. And that's why he says, being that we go based on strength and not based on which hand you use more, that's why the Alter Rebbe paskin in lulav that he uses his whatever is left of his right hand and not his left hand, which right now is the stronger one.
Okay. When it comes to chalitza, doesn't the Rambam tell us that if you don't have a hand, you can't do chalitza, because the Torah specifically tells us about a hand?
That's the whole discussion. That tshuva is 3/4 of it discusses this chalitza, the machlekes regarding that. So since you're going to have to get other people to speak, so next round, when you ask the next rabbi to speak about this tshuva, Tzemach Tzedek, about chalitza, and it'll be a continuation to what I said. Hopefully.
Okay. All right. As we're about to conclude over here, a closing thought. We just concluded. We just in the 3 weeks. We're in the 9 days. We just learned about Hilchas Tainus. We ended. Can you give us one final thought here as we're about to head towards Rosh Chodesh Av and the 3 weeks?
I want to use a topic that's interesting, a phenomenal minor from the Rebbe, and this somewhat connects to the halachas of Chol HaMoed and the halachas of the 3 weeks. We all know Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to make weddings. We all know that on the 3 weeks, you're not allowed to make weddings. The Sfardim is from the 9th, from Rosh Chodesh. and the Ashkenazim are machmer. The Rambam says you machmer to go all the way from the beginning of the 3 weeks. Interestingly, in the Pri Megadim on Siman Taf Kuf Nun Aleph, he says that when he discusses what it says that you don't make weddings, he says that regarding the din of machzir grushosa, if a man was already married to a woman, divorced her, now he has a mitzvah of bringing her back, marrying her again. He says the whole idea of getting married is because you happiness. You're already married to this woman, you dumped her. It's not the laf simcha hiloi. It's not a happiness to him. So maybe it's probably mutter, maybe it's aser. And he brings a proof. He says that the reason why he thinks it's mutter, he ends at tzarechiyum, but he says the reason why he thinks it's mutter is because it is like Cholamoyed. He says, look in Cholamoyed over there. It says that in Siman Tov Kuf Mem Vav, the Shulchan Aruch clearly writes mutter lahachzik grushos in Cholamoyed. And over there it's explained. The Tosfos says because it's not the same. It's not the same simcha. It's not so much simcha. And so now, why am I mentioning this? And I'm sure people know there's a time when when a lot of Russians came from Russia, the Lubavitchers would make weddings, group weddings for them. So they didn't have chuppah and kedushin in Russia. They would get married. They'll make a big chuppah, which would be for 10, 20 people at a time. And then all these people, the woman would go to mikveh, and the man would have a chuppah. In Tammuz, in the middle of the 3 weeks of Tafshin Nun, Rabbi Zaltzman of Toronto wrote to the Rebbe that he wants to make in Yud Dalet Kislev, the following year, he wants to make a mass wedding for 10 people who weren't married yet. That didn't have Kedas Moshe Yisrael. It means right now, maybe the woman didn't go to mikveh, but they're not living they don't have a chuppah of Kedushin. The Rebbe circled those words of not having a chuppah of Kedushin. He wrote like this: I push it over 5 months. If this group of people as they're arranging this wedding would have found a Rav, which passes according to Shulchan Aruch, Vaday hoyo matir u'mitzaver lasis ezeh, he would definitely be matir and instruct you to do this. Afilu begimal hashavuos, even during the 3 weeks, but come over and it's obvious.
Wow.
That is the Rebbe's answer. So you could look at it from 2 ways. Either you could say these people are living in living in sin, complete sin, but definitely not the proper way. So they're not going to push them off. Even in the 3 weeks, you got to save them. Or you could say maybe it's because it's based on what I just mentioned from the Pri Megadim. That the machzik grushosai, it's not machzik grushosai. You're still living with her, but it's not the same simcha as getting married the first time. As getting married, you're living with her for 20 years. So that's why maybe I don't know what the Rebbe's reason is. The Rebbe writes, come over, and then it's obvious. I don't know. It's obvious because the Rebbe said it, but what's the reason the Rebbe didn't write the Maramokim? So it's left to us to decide based on which svara it could work with. Rabbi,
thank you very much.
I hope you don't have any more questions for me.
Thank you very much. And this actually is a beautiful segue to Rabbi Shuchat. I'd like to honor you. We're going to pull up on the board now the very final halacha, talking about the peace of the home, bringing of husband and wife together, the value of having light in the home, even more than spreading it outside. Before you can spread light outside the home, we spread light in the home. And if we can please ask you, here we go, to please read for us the final halacha of Sefer Zmanim.
If a person has only enough money to only purchase one candle, either Neir Beisei, the candle for his house, which is for Shabbos, which is for Shalom Bayis, or and the Neir Chanukah, or Neir Beisei, he has only enough for Shabbos candles for Kiddush Hayoim, and to do Kiddush. Neir Beisei Koidem, the Shabbos candles take precedence. Mishum Shloim Beisei, because to have peace in your house. Sharei Hashem Nimchak, Las Hashem B'Nish, because we know, we learned Saita not so long ago, the idea of Saita that Hashem's name, Hashem agreed that his name should be erased just for the purpose of making peace between man and his wife. And therefore, the fact that the candles of Shabbos are stronger even than Kiddush, and even definitely more than Chanukah. Then it concludes, Gadol HaSholem, so great is peace. The whole Torah was given for the purpose of bringing peace in the world. As it says about the Torah, the paths of Torah are pleasant, and all its ways are peace.
Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. We are now going to begin right away. We're now going to right away begin. The Rambam begins. B'Shem Hashem Kelelam. Torah's chacham akarchaim laser mimokshe mavis. The Torah is the instructions of the wise man, and it is a spring of life for all of us. And we turn to it. And when we turn to it, it takes us away from any traps of death. And we begin with the very first halacha, which is before the giving of the Torah, a man met a woman in the marketplace. If there was consensual will on both their parts, then they can be, he can bring her into his home, and they can live together as husband and wife. But once a Torah is given, now after the giving of the Torah, if a man wants to marry a woman, before they actually engage in marriage, before she brings him to live in his home, they have to have some form of acquisition that's created by two witnesses. And only then can they be married as husband and wife. As it says, a man has to gikach, a man has to transfer the woman into his owner, into his private, to uniquely designated to him, and only then can they engage and live as husband and wife. Thank you very much, Rabbi Shuchat. The Eibusha should give you long, healthy years to continue being Marbitz Torah, teaching Torah, and being a Pesach of Torah throughout all. Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Shuchat. Thank you for joining us. We are now going to put up on the board the quiz for Sefer Zmanim. And here we go. Please follow along with the questions. Test your knowledge. Here we go. Which of the following halachas are not discussed in his Sefer Zmanim? Is it Hilchos Sfiras HaOmer, Chametz HaMatzvah, Kiddush HaChodesh, or Tainus? Number 2, which set of halachas in Zmanim has a grand total of 30 Perokim? Is it Shabbos, Shvis HaSaser, Kiddush HaChodesh, or Erevin? Number 3, what is the measurement of a Roichav Hasit? It's mentioned in Hilchos Shabbos. Is it from the knee until the ankle? Is it from the thumb until the pinky when the fingers are stretched open to the limit? Is it from one ear to the other when measuring over the head? Or is it from the shoulders until the elbow? Number 4, what kind of behavior does the Rambam say is not the joy of Yom Tov, rather it's the joy of one's stomach? Is it when a person eats a meal but skips going to daven in a shul? Is it when a person goes to daven in a shul but doesn't go to a public shiur in the afternoon? Is it when a person doesn't invite needy people or the embittered to eat with him and his family? Or there is no such statement in the Rambam? Number 5, which type of Erev is not discussed in the laws of Erev? Is it an Erev Chatzeres, Tchumen, Tavshilin, or none of the above? Number 6, regarding which prohibitions the Rambam suggests not to protest. It's better they should do so unintentionally than intentionally so. Is it ladies who eat until dark right before Yom Kippur? Is it ladies who carry handkerchiefs in their pockets on Shabbos? Is it people who wear weekday clothing on Chol HaMoed? Or is it people who are lax in their attendance of Simchas Pesach Sheva? Number 7, how is it possible to be Chayav Malchus for owning chametz on Pesach? How is that possible? Is it A, if you didn't get rid of the chametz before Pesach? B, if you made chametz on Pesach? C, if you purchased chametz on Pesach? Or answers B and C. Number 8, for which halacha does the Rambam bring the pasuk b'chatzeisus b'chol shefer ariyel fnei hamelech Hashem? Is that brought so that to teach us that one should have kavana, that he is standing in front of Hashem while blowing a shofar? Is it that in the Beis Hamikdash, a shofar was accompanied by trumpets? Is it to help identify what is considered true in the Torah? Is it to need to say Malchus, Zocheres, and Shofars in Musaf of Rosh Hashanah? Number 9, regarding which of these mitzvahs does the Rambam mention visiting a sick people when the mitzvah item is still in one's hands? Is that the shofar, the lulav, the megillah, or none of the above? And finally, pertaining to which halacha does the Rambam write that there should be su'udas gedolos, big meals? Is that the Simchas Pesach Sheva? Is that the second day of Yom Tov, so people were treated with proper respect? Is that for the witnesses who came to testify about the new moon? Or is that providing food for Yom Tov for the needy? And we'll give a few more moments for everyone to finish, and we will record the answers for everybody, the winner of which will receive a Rambam. Which Rambam is going to be received? I don't remember exactly which one it is. You'll have to look at the flyer. I'll look at it as we go. Sorry. It is a set of Eitzer HaMelech on the Rambam. Sorry, thank you. That is the winner of today's trivia. If we can please take down the trivia now, and we will provide the answers. Okay. The halachas that are not mentioned in this book are Sfiras HaOmer. The one that has 30 chapters in it is Hilchos Shabbos. A sit is a measurement from the thumb until the pinky when they're stretched apart to the limit. The Rambam tells us that when you have a meal and you don't invite needy people to your meal, that is not real joy. The type of Eruv that is not mentioned in this book is an Eruv Tavshilin, is not mentioned here. We are told, when should you not tell people what they're doing is wrong? That's the ladies who eat. If they eat until right before Yom Kippur, until the evening on Yom Kippur. How is it possible to be Chayiv Malchus for owning chametz? B and C, meaning if you made chametz or if you own chametz. Where the pasuk that teaches us that in the Beis Hamikdash the shofar was accompanied with trumpets. The Rambam told us you visit someone with a lulav in your hand. And finally, whom had the big meals? The big meals were created for the witnesses who would come to testify for a new moon. Thank you everyone very much for joining us, and who will join us and who's live and who will be live. Please join us in just a few weeks as we conclude Sefer Nashim. This book actually contains the chapter with the most number of halachas. Some of the Perokim in this book are fairly complex, and the Eibusha should give us each the strength, the ability, and the understanding to be able to read, learn, and study Rambam with greater enthusiasm and chayas. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, of course, to Rabbi Tula Lane, who's behind the scenes orchestrating today's Zoom. Thank you to Rabbi Cantor, who is from Switzerland, who is the energy of keeping this going, and to all those who are involved, Rabbi Zazaklis, Rabbi Bush, Rabbi Darren, and all those who are involved. I'm sorry if I'm missing your name, Rabbi Glasman, and so many others who put these programs together and allow these to take place for all of our benefits. Hatzlacha, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Thank you very much.